Hey guys, I am DM Zone. This is Gamer's Oasis. Let's get into it. Okay, so we're going to talk real quickly about original Dungeons and Dragons XP. This is not a clear thing, depending on um, which rules you're using and your understanding of them. You might be using one of the three different iterations or corrections, or the two corrections, I should say, or reinterpretations, maybe, polish of the rules for just experience. The reason why that is, in my opinion, is because the word roleplay isn't even in the cover, in the book, or any of the three books, or frankly, any of the original Dungeons and Dragons books. You can even go into the supplements. They're not even talking about roleplay games there. That to me is a little bit odd. So when I looked into it, some of the interviews they had back then, everything basically stated that the only people that were doing role play back in 1974 were like actors trying to capture the spirit or the what would their character be doing, and those who were in like group therapy type of things, trying to figure out how they're supposed to behave or how to predict how people would behave, or just so they can understand what their behavior is causing in emotion and reactions to other people, that type of thing. And I don't think that Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson, being wargamers, playing historical war games that were to scale and all that type of stuff, really wanted that to be part of their group. I think they wanted something a little more serious, maybe some serious fun that didn't involve real world tech. I would say maybe that they didn't do it because they're afraid that they'd be considered copyright and whatnot, but I don't think that really came into a whole lot of what they were thinking back then. So in the first three books, the Book of Men and Magic, Book 1, has the original rules for experience. I'll have the page numbers and everything for these things as we go. And this one here is very simple. I mean, they really got it down to the chase on this one. Every hit dice was 100 XP. Okay, so boom, you're fighting a goblin, one hit dice or something around that. Not 1+1, that's for sure. That would be 100 XP. So you kill 12 goblins, then you've leveled to level 2 if you were a thief. Okay, no problem. Easy to understand. Everyone's got it. That type of stuff. They did some rounding. If it was like a troll, which is 6+3, then that would count as a 7 hit dice creature. And they just moved on. There was nothing there for the regeneration. There was nothing there for like an ogre's improved strength. None of that. They talk about these things, but they didn't really account for any of these things. So, and that worked. Now, about a year later, a little less, a little more, whatever it was exactly, they came out with the first supplement, Greyhawk. And in that one, they did a little bit more refining. And really about the time they're getting ready to release that book, and I'm pretty sure that Strategic Review was an easier book to get out than the actual main rule book for the supplement one. So these are probably both being discussed at one point, and some of it didn't make it into the cut, so they just threw it in the Strategic Review, which I think was fairly typical back then, because I don't even really know if they thought this was going to be the final version of the game. Because remember, this is 1975 now. By the time 1977 comes around, we have a whole new edition of the game, and they have revised the basic game. So I think all these things were probably in works even in 75. Very early on, they're like, this game's going to require more than polish. It's probably going to require like a restructuring. And there's a lot more we want to talk about. We'll just throw it in the Strategic Review, number 2. And then we will go ahead and release this other part here, and then we'll find what people like, and then that will be how we move forward. So in the Strategic Review, it goes back to a lot of the wording in the original book 1, the Men in Magic book, where it talks about all the things that are worth experience. You have magic items, you have coins, gold in particular, the value of items. All these things are worth experience. So it's a 1-to-1 gold ratio, and that's what you got from book 1. But you didn't really get anything about what magic. Matter of fact, I didn't even read that the first time, that because it's in all the other editions, magic items don't give you experience. So I was like, that's interesting when I saw that. As a matter of fact, if you've watched some of my earlier videos, you actually saw kind of when that realization happened. So that's a different thing that is probably pretty much unique to original Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, so what the Greyhawk book had came out with a different structuring for how the experience it was still based on hit dice, but instead of it being a fixed number and then not taking into any sort of accounting that a vampire can charm person, for example, or an ogre has +1 strength, or the trolls can regenerate, or that certain woodland fey creatures are invisible, pixies and whatnot. They give the base XP for the hit dice, which has a lot of assumptions in it. And then for every special ability that's sizable, I would assume, not like being able to see in the dark, because all bad guys can, they give a bonus XP. And I'm going to go ahead and have that chart over there. Now that's that is basically what I'm using, with a few caveats, because even this doesn't cover all of it, because there are some gaps still. Like, for example, you have yellow mold. Yellow mold is not a core base creature, but it talks about in the core base rules that new creatures can be added is no problem. So a creature like yellow mold very much could be added. Yellow mold is actually added in the strategic review. So it's not like it's some third party thing that didn't even exist back then. Not yet. The DM's Guild came out later. But this is a thing that doesn't have hit dice. That was made by them in a system where the XP is supposed to be based off of the fact that it has hit dice. I kind of just went with an arbitrary, for every 5-foot square that has yellow mold in it, I'm going to give 25 XP. Reason being is if you have a room that's chock-a-block full of it, you should have a lot of XP by navigating it or destroying it all, or whatever the situation might be. Because yellow mold doesn't fight you. Yellow mold makes you make a save throw. If you fail it and no one's around there to save you, you just die. You get devoured by the mold. And that is a terrifying thing. And it's not like you can beat on it because it's a mold. You have to burn it. So essentially, if you burn it, it goes away, but you have to get within a certain distance or have a resource to expend, like a flask of oil. And I don't think necessarily it's overly flammable. So it's not like it's going to be, you throw it here and it lights up the whole area and like wildfire burns the whole room. The way I kind of understand it, it's mold. So it probably burns until it fizzles out when the fuel source runs away. So you're going to have to expend a lot to get through that room. I think you should be compensated probably 25 XP for basically every 5-foot square you take. That's just my own thoughts. That's the way I dealt with it. So part of the things I'm using too also is your level compared to the creature's level. I still deploy that from the first book. So for example, if you have a party, I'm just going to go ahead and go with a sort of a mental pre-made one I have here. We have a 3rd level thief. We have 2 at 2nd level, a cleric and the fighter, and we have a 1st level, we'll go with an elf. Okay. Now, they're all about the same XP total, but because they level at different speeds, they're at different levels. Does that make sense? Okay, good. So, looking at this, they run into a 2nd level goblin. Let's just say they ran into the goblin individually. The elf casts a spell, kills it. The elf is first level, the goblin is second level. The elf's level becomes the denominator, which is the bottom number of a fraction. The goblin becomes the top number of that fraction. So it's 2 over 1. Basically what the rules say is you cap out at 1. You can't get more XP than what the creature's actually worth because you happen to be lower level and get the benefit. Okay? So in that version of the rules, it'd be 200 XP. Well, the cleric and the fighter also run into this goblin. They both individually fight this goblin. They both get 2 over 2 for XP, which is 1, which means they get the same XP as the magic user. Okay? Makes a lot of sense. Okay, now the thief runs into this. The thief is a 3rd level thief. The goblin is a 2nd level or 2 hit dice creature. The thief has a denominator of 3. The goblin has a numerator of 2. So that makes it 2/3. So he's going to get 2/3 of 200 XP. Breaks out to be 133 repeating. Okay, basically. Now that is where the level of the creatures comes in, and it allows creatures that are lower level to get more XP and to play this catch up, which was very common, that you would have high level party members traveling with low level party members. It makes it easier for the higher level party member, makes it fairly safe, but it's still doable and everyone's having fun, and the lower level party gets more XP for leveling. Nothing more than the cap of the creature, but it allows them to level up faster. And that's kind of also a thing I'm doing too. Except now I don't use the book 1 on page 18 or whatever it is, XP. I'm using the Greyhawk book with that one is on 2 different pages technically. Extra rules from the strategic review for like magic items and this type of stuff. And then when they take down something with hit dice, I still do the numerator denominator to figure out whether or how much they're getting XP wise. I say this because now my characters are starting to go up a little bit of level. So all the goblins are running into, they're going to get 1/2 XP, because those that are 2nd level are going to have a denominator of 2, and the goblins are still going to be 1 unless they're fighting the goblin bosses and whatnot. Okay, guys, I just really want to add one little note in here. Henchmen. The way henchmen always work is henchmen always get half XP. I kind of view it as like a 3-to-1 ratio. So if you have a henchman in the group, like a torchbearer, like I do, I have Beba. Beba is going to count as the 6th person in the group. She will only get 1/2 XP because she's not taking up as much risk. This is kind of a new polished version of this. And I basically have 2 more slots in the group for different things, like porters or a cook maybe. And that they would all get half XP as well before it counts as the 7th person. If I get a 4th person, then that would count as an additional person in the party. This allows and encourages you to have henchmen without it being completely devastating to the progress of the party. This is another thing that I think they really loved about Dungeons and Dragons back in the day. And here's the basic thing. Just like they give XP to gold, and not necessarily just for the creatures, you put the XP in what you want them to do. The original players, the original game masters, the original referees all wanted people to do exploration, dungeon diving, exploring new things, experiencing new experiences, and to just basically escape. And the way they did it was this. That's why I feel like I'm doing this closely in the spirit of everything. Anyways, guys, I hope you guys